I'm Grace Henderson, and at 32 I thought I'd seen every bird Virginia Beach had to offer. Wrong as hell. The morning mist clung to First Landing State Park like secrets, and I was crouched behind a fallen oak with my binoculars. 5:30 a.m. on a Tuesday. Most people think I'm crazy for these dawn expeditions, but horses aren't the only wild things that fascinate me. That's when I saw it. A flash of brilliant blue and orange that made my breath catch. Painted bunting, male, rarer than honest politicians in this state. Holy shit, I whispered, adjusting the focus. The bird perched on a twisted branch near the old pier ruins, preening in the golden light. I fumbled for my phone to take a picture, knowing nobody would believe this. Don't move. The voice came from behind me. Female, soft but commanding. I froze, still holding my binoculars. Through the eyepieces, I watched the bunting cock its jewel-bright head. Are you seeing this too? I asked without turning around. Every gorgeous detail. Footsteps approached, careful and quiet. Professional quiet. I lowered my binoculars and turned. She was maybe 28, with blonde hair escaping from under a worn baseball cap. Blue eyes that seemed to capture light like her camera probably did. Because yeah, she had a serious-looking camera hanging around her neck, lens cap off and ready. Brooke Roberts, she said, extending a hand. Photographer. Grace Henderson, horse trainer. Her grip was firm, confident. You know birds? I know beautiful things. She raised her camera. Mind if I shoot? For a split second, I thought she meant me. Heat crept up my neck. The bird, she clarified, but her eyes lingered on mine a beat too long. We worked in perfect silence for the next 20 minutes. She captured the bunting from every angle while I spotted for her, calling out when it moved. The intimacy surprised me. Two strangers, but we moved around each other like dance partners who'd rehearsed. When the bird finally flew off, we both exhaled simultaneously. Coffee? She asked, already packing her gear. I know a place. Walking back through the park, I snuck glances at her profile. The morning light caught the curve of her cheekbone, the determination in her jaw. She moved with purpose, like she knew exactly where she belonged in the world. Unlike me lately. What brings you to ruins at dawn? I asked. Same thing that brings you to birds, I imagine. She adjusted her camera strap, looking for something most people miss. The parking lot came into view. 2 cars, mine and presumably hers. The coffee shop on Atlantic Avenue, I said. 30 minutes? I'll be there. She climbed into a dusty Jeep covered in bumper stickers from national parks. I watched her drive away, wondering what the hell had just happened. In my truck, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. Auburn hair a mess, dirt smudged on my cheek, but my green eyes were brighter than they'd been in months. Since the business troubles started. Since Marcus began questioning every decision I made. But for the first time in weeks, I wasn't thinking about failing finances or difficult horses. I was thinking about blue eyes and gentle hands, and the way she'd said beautiful things like she meant more than just the bird. 9 minutes later, I was sitting in a corner booth at Grind Coffee, leg bouncing under the table like a nervous teenager. She walked in right on time. The horses sensed my distraction the moment I walked into the barn. Thunder, my most temperamental stallion, snorted and stamped as I approached his stall. Yeah, I know, I muttered, checking his feed. I'm acting weird. Marcus looked up from mucking stalls at the far end. My business partner of 5 years, reliable as sunrise and twice as predictable. You missed the Patterson appointment, he said. Damn. The painted bunting had made me forget completely. I'll call them. Grace, we can't afford to lose clients right now. Marcus leaned on his pitchfork. The feed bills alone are killing us. I knew the numbers by heart. The expansion loan payments, the insurance hikes, the vet bills from winter. We were balancing on a knife's edge. I said I'll handle it. But my mind kept drifting to coffee that morning. How Brooke had ordered her latte with oat milk and extra shot. How she'd laughed when I described Thunder's stubborn streak. You seem different today, Marcus had said as we'd parted ways. Different. Yeah. That was one word for it. 15 miles away, Brooke was probably in her darkroom. I pictured her in red light, chemicals, and creativity. The thought made something flutter in my chest. I pulled out my phone and stared at her number. We'd exchanged contacts over coffee, professional courtesy, she'd said. but the way she'd smiled when she typed it in suggested otherwise. The darkroom had always been my sanctuary, but today the familiar chemical smell couldn't settle my racing thoughts. I'd been developing the morning shots for 2 hours, and Grace appeared in 3 of them. Background figure in the first 2, but the third one made me pause. She was looking directly at something off camera, binoculars lowered, expression intense but soft. The light caught her auburn hair, emphasizing the determined line of her jaw and the gentle curve of her mouth. I'd accidentally captured something intimate without meaning to. Damn, I whispered, studying the print. Grace Henderson, horse trainer. Single, I'd learned over coffee. 32 years old and struggling to keep her business afloat, though she'd tried to hide that part. I hung the photo to dry and tried to focus on the bunting shots. They were good, gallery-worthy, but my eyes kept returning to Grace. My phone buzzed. Text from Elena, my gallery liaison. Need Friday deadline confirmation. Major buyer interested in Ruins series. The Ruins series that was supposed to launch my career. 6 months of crawling through abandoned buildings around Virginia Beach, capturing beauty and decay. Elena had been pushing me toward commercial success, but something about her urgency felt wrong lately. I typed back, still editing. Need more time. Another buzz. Time is money, Brooke. Don't overthink it. But art wasn't about deadlines. It was about capturing truth, like that accidental shot of Grace. I found myself back at First Landing State Park 3 days later, telling myself I needed more bird photos for the series. Liar. I was hoping to see her again. The same fallen oak where we'd met beckoned me, and I settled in with my camera. Dawn was breaking, painting the sky in watercolor pastels. No painted bunting today, but I didn't mind. The piece felt necessary after Elena's increasingly demanding calls. Footsteps on the trail made my heart skip. Couldn't stay away either? Grace emerged from the morning mist like she belonged there. Jeans, boots, hair pulled back in a ponytail that emphasized her neck. Guilty? I said, lowering my camera. Though I'm starting to think that Bird was a one-time miracle. Maybe we were the miracle. She sat on the log beside me, closer than necessary. Some things are worth waiting for. The way she said it, looking directly at me, made heat pool in my stomach. I keep thinking about Tuesday morning, I admitted. The coffee or the bird? The company. Grace smiled, and it transformed her whole face, made her look younger, less burdened by whatever weight she carried. Brooke, can I ask you something? Anything. Would you be interested in photographing my horses? I mean, professionally. I could pay you. My pulse quickened. I'd love to see your world. Tomorrow afternoon? Around 4? It's a date. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Grace's eyes darkened slightly. Yes, it is. The coffee shop had become our accidental meeting place. 3 days after promising to photograph Grace's horses, I found myself there again, nursing a latte and checking my phone. Fancy seeing you here. Grace slid into the seat across from me, hair damp from what looked like a morning ride. The scent of hay and something uniquely her made my stomach flip. I was hoping you'd show up, I admitted. Good, because I have a proposition. She leaned forward, elbows on the table. Skip the formal photo session. Come riding with me instead. I don't ride. I'll teach you. Private lesson. Her green eyes held mine. Unless you're afraid of getting dirty. The challenge in her voice made me grin. Henderson, you have no idea what I'm willing to get dirty for. Something shifted in her expression. Heat. Recognition. 4 o'clock then. Wear jeans. Grace's property sat on 12 acres of rolling Virginia countryside about 20 minutes from the beach. The barn was weathered wood and honest labor, surrounded by white fenced paddocks where horses grazed in afternoon sunlight. This is beautiful, I said, climbing out of my Jeep. It's home. Grace's voice carried pride and worry in equal measure. Come meet the family. She led me to a sleek black mare in the nearest paddock. This is Midnight. She's gentle enough for beginners but smart enough to keep you honest. And Thunder? He's the drama queen in the corner stall. You'll meet him when you're ready. As Grace saddled Midnight, I watched her hands. Strong, sure, gentle. The way she spoke to the horse, low and soothing, made me wonder what those hands would feel like on my skin. Focus, Roberts, I muttered. Did you say something? Just impressed by your technique. Grace glanced over her shoulder. I've been told I have good hands. The double meaning hung between us like a challenge. 20 minutes later, I was astride midnight, Grace walking alongside holding the lead rope. My camera bounced against my hip with each step. Relax your shoulders, Grace instructed. Let your body move with hers. Like this? Better. You're a natural. The praise sent warmth through my chest. When had anyone last called me natural at anything? Elena was always pushing me to be more commercial, more marketable. Can we stop here? I asked, as we reached a grove of old oaks. Grace helped me dismount, her hands lingering on my waist a moment longer than necessary. I pulled out my camera and started shooting. Grace with the horses, Grace laughing at something I'd said, Grace looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. You're good at this, she said, moving closer to see the camera's display. You're a good subject. We were standing close now. Close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes, close enough to count the freckles across her nose. Brooke? Yeah? I'm going to kiss you now. My heart hammered. Okay. Her lips were soft, tentative at first, then more confident when I responded. She tasted like mint and possibility. When we broke apart, I was breathless. That was overdue, Grace finished. I laughed, surprising myself. I was going to say perfect. That too. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Grace led me back to the barn, our fingers intertwined. Will you stay for dinner? She asked. I'd like that. Inside the barn, golden light filtered through the open doors. Grace showed me Thunder's stall, the massive stallion eyeing me with what looked like approval. He likes you, Grace said, surprised. Animals always do. I'm non-threatening. I wouldn't say that. Grace's voice was low, intimate. You're dangerous as hell. Before I could ask what she meant, she was kissing me again. This time, against Thunder's stall, her body pressed against mine. I dropped my camera bag and wrapped my arms around her neck. She pulled back slightly, breathing hard. We should go inside. Should we? Before I do something that scares the horses. The farmhouse was small but warm, filled with riding trophies and black and white photos of horses. Grace poured wine while I studied the pictures. These are incredible. Who took them? My ex-girlfriend. She was a photographer too. The past tense didn't escape me. Was? She left last year, said the country life wasn't for her. Grace handed me a glass, said I wasn't enough for her. She was an idiot. Grace smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Maybe. Or maybe she was right. Grace. I set down my wine and stepped closer. Look at me. She did, and I saw the vulnerability she'd been hiding. The fear that she wasn't enough, would never be enough. You're extraordinary, I said simply. This time when she kissed me, it was with desperation. Like she was afraid I might disappear. I kissed her back with everything I had, trying to show her what I couldn't yet say. That I was falling for her. Hard. That for the first time in my life, I'd found someone worth staying for. Meet me at sunrise. Grace had texted the night before. I want to show you something. Now, watching her saddle 2 horses in the pre-dawn darkness, I wondered what I'd gotten myself into. Ever ridden on the beach? She asked, tightening Thunder's girth. Is that even legal? Depends who's asking. Grace grinned and handed me Midnight's reins. Live a little, Roberts? 20 minutes later, we emerged from the dunes onto an empty stretch of Virginia beach. The ocean stretched endlessly, waves catching the first hints of sunrise. This is incredible, I breathed. Grace urged Thunder into a trot, and I followed on Midnight. The horses moved differently on sand, powerful and graceful. I pulled out my camera one-handed, capturing Grace silhouetted against the brightening sky. Tell me about your ex, I said when we slowed to a walk. Sarah? Grace's jaw tightened. What about her? How long were you together? 3 years. She wanted me to sell this place, move to Richmond. Said I was wasting my life playing with horses. But this isn't playing. This is who you are. Grace looked at me sharply. Exactly. Which is why she left. The pain in her voice made my chest ache. We rode in silence until the sun broke fully over the horizon, painting everything gold. I have a confession, Grace said suddenly. What? I've been thinking about you constantly since Tuesday. Heat pooled in my stomach. Good thinking or bad thinking? Dangerous thinking. We stopped the horses near a cluster of rocks. Grace dismounted and walked over to help me down. Her hands on my waist sent electricity through my whole body. Show me your secret place, she said, nodding toward my camera. The ruins you photograph. An hour later, we stood in front of the old Cavalier Hotel, abandoned since Hurricane Isabel. Broken windows stared like empty eyes, but sunset light streaming through them created cathedral beauty. Welcome to my world, I said, leading Grace inside. We climbed to the third floor, where the ballroom stretched in faded grandeur. Dust motes danced in shafts of light, and our footsteps echoed on warped parquet floors. It's beautiful, Grace whispered. Decay can be gorgeous. Everything broken has its own story. I started taking pictures while Grace explored, running her hands along peeling wallpaper. When I lowered my camera, she was watching me with an expression that made my heart race. What? You love this. Really love it. Yeah. I do. The way I love horses. Exactly. Grace walked closer, her boots loud on the empty floor. Brooke, I need to tell you something. What? I haven't felt this way about anyone since Sarah. Maybe not even with Sarah. My breath caught. Grace. I'm scared as hell, but I can't stop thinking about you. Before I could respond, she was kissing me. Different from yesterday, hungrier. I dropped my camera bag and pulled her closer, tasting the desperation on her lips. We stumbled backward until my shoulders hit the wall. Grace's hands found the hem of my shirt, fingers skating across bare skin. I gasped into her mouth. Is this okay? She whispered. More than okay. What happened next was gentle urgency, clothes discarded on dusty floors as afternoon light painted patterns on our skin. Grace's touch was reverent, like I was something precious she was afraid to break. When she kissed her way down my neck, I arched against the cool wall. You're so beautiful, she murmured against my collarbone. I pulled her face up to mine, wanting to see her eyes. So are you. We made love slowly in that broken place, surrounded by faded elegance and golden light. Grace was careful and thorough, learning every sound I made. When I fell apart in her arms, she held me like I might disappear. Afterward, we lay on my jacket, Grace's head on my chest. The late afternoon sun had shifted, casting long shadows across the floor. That was, I started. Perfect, Grace finished. I was going to say life-changing, but perfect works too. She lifted her head to look at me. Really? Really? I brushed auburn hair from her face. Grace, I need you to know something. What? I've never felt this connected to anyone before. Ever. Her smile was radiant. Me neither. We got dressed slowly, reluctant to break the spell. As we prepared to leave, Grace caught my hand. Thank you for sharing this with me. Your secret place. Thank you for making it mean something new. Outside, the horses waited patiently. As we rode back toward Grace's property, I felt something shifting inside me. Elena's gallery deadline seemed less important now. Everything seemed less important, except the woman riding beside me. Grace? Yeah? I'm falling for you. Hard. She rained thunder to a stop and looked at me seriously. Good. Because I'm already there. As we kissed in the fading light, neither of us noticed the white envelope tucked under Grace's truck windshield wiper. I found the envelope when Grace and I got back from the ruins, tucked under my windshield wiper like a parking ticket. Plain white, no return address, my name written in block letters. What's that? Grace asked, dismounting thunder. I tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, completely blank. Weird. I showed her the empty page. Some kid's idea of a prank, I guess. Grace frowned. That's strange timing. Why? I got one too. Yesterday morning. A chill ran down my spine despite the warm evening. Also blank? Completely. We stared at each other across the barnyard. The horses sensed our unease, shifting restlessly. Probably just coincidence, I said, but my voice sounded uncertain even to me. Yeah. Probably. The next morning, Grace called me at 6 a.m. Midnight sick, she said without preamble. Really sick. I threw on clothes and drove straight over. Grace was in the mare's stall, looking haggard. The vet, a grizzled man named Dr. Hoffman, was packing his bag. "What happened?" I asked. "Don't know yet," Hoffman said. "Could be colic, could be something she ate. Keep her walking, no food until we see how she responds to the medication." After he left, Grace and I took turns walking midnight around the paddock. The mare was clearly in distress, her breathing labored. "This doesn't make sense," Grace said. "She was fine yesterday, perfect health. These things happen with horses, right? Not like this. Not so sudden." By afternoon, Midnight was stable but still weak. Grace sat in the stall, stroking the mare's neck with shaking hands. "She's going to be okay," I said. "The vet bills alone will put me under. And if word gets out that my horses are getting sick," Grace's voice cracked, "Marcus is going to flip." As if summoned, Marcus appeared in the barn doorway. His face was grim. "Patterson called," he said. "They're canceling their contract." Grace looked up sharply. "What? Why?" "Said they heard rumors about sick animals. Don't want to risk their reputation." I felt Grace's world crumbling around her. 3 days ago, we'd made love in golden light. Now everything was falling apart. My phone rang as I drove home. Elena, my gallery contact. "Where are the final prints?" she demanded without greeting. "I told you, I need more time. The buyer is getting impatient, Brooke. This could make your career. And if I'm not ready? Then maybe you're not cut out for this business." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, Elena's words echoing in my head. Back at my apartment, I found my darkroom had been broken into. Nothing stolen, but every carefully arranged chemical bottle was knocked over. Months of work destroyed by what looked like deliberate sabotage. "Damn it," I whispered, surveying the wreckage. My camera equipment was untouched, but all my backup prints were ruined, including the shots of Grace from yesterday. The blank letter sat on my kitchen counter where I'd left it, mocking me with its emptiness. 2 days later, Grace called again. This time, Thunder was limping badly. Then the automatic waterer in the main paddock malfunctioned, flooding the barn. Then the truck wouldn't start. "It's like everything's going wrong at once," Grace said over coffee. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her green eyes. "For both of us," I said, telling her about the dark room. "You think it's connected? The letters?" "I don't know. Maybe." But looking at Grace's haunted expression, I was starting to believe it was more than coincidence. "There's something else," Grace said quietly. "What?" "I found another envelope yesterday. Same handwriting, same blank paper." My blood ran cold. "I got one too." We sat in silence, the weight of it settling over us like a storm cloud. "Grace, who knows about us? About us being together?" She thought for a moment. "Marcus, obviously. He's not thrilled about me dating again." "Why not?" "He thinks it's a distraction. Says I need to focus on saving the business." I remembered Elena's increasing pressure, her insistence that art should be commercial, profitable. "Elena's been pushing me toward this gallery deal. Says I'm not focused enough on my career." "You think they're trying to break us up?" The possibility hung between us, ugly and real. "I don't know," I said. "But I'm starting to think those letters aren't random." Grace reached across the table and took my hand. Her fingers were cold. "Whatever this is, we'll figure it out together. Promise?" "Promise." But as we walked out of the coffee shop, I noticed a familiar white car following us. When I pointed it out to Grace, the car quickly turned down a side street. "Paranoid," I muttered, but the feeling of being watched wouldn't leave me. That night, Grace called in tears. Another horse was sick, and 2 potential clients had canceled after hearing rumors about her stable. "I'm going to lose everything," she sobbed. "No, you're not. We'll figure this out." "How?" "Everything I touch turns to shit lately. Because someone wants it to." The silence on the other end told me she was thinking the same thing. "Grace, I'm coming over. You don't have to." "Yes, I do. We're in this together, remember?" Grace paced her living room like a caged animal, cell phone pressed to her ear. I could hear Marcus's voice through the speaker, sharp and accusatory. "You were supposed to meet with the bank yesterday," he was saying. "I told you, Thunder was sick. I couldn't leave." Grace, we're 3 weeks behind on the loan payment. They're threatening foreclosure. I watched her shoulders tense. Since the troubles started, Marcus had become increasingly hostile about every decision Grace made. I'll handle it, she said. The way you handled the Patterson contract? The way you're handling your personal life? Grace's jaw clenched. What's that supposed to mean? Ever since you started seeing her, everything's gone to hell. Marcus. I'm serious. Before the photographer showed up, we were managing. Now look at us. Grace hung up without another word and threw her phone onto the couch. He's wrong, I said quietly. Is he? Grace turned to face me, pain etched in every line of her face. Maybe I am distracted. Maybe this is my fault. Grace, no. Someone is sabotaging us. This isn't coincidence. Prove it. I couldn't. Not yet. The next morning, I decided to confront Elena directly. Her gallery occupied prime real estate on Atlantic Avenue, all white walls and pretentious lighting. Brooke, Elena smiled when I walked in, but it didn't reach her eyes. Perfect timing. I have news about the buyer. Actually, I have questions about my missing prints. Her expression shifted slightly. Missing prints? From my darkroom. Someone broke in and destroyed months of work. That's terrible. Have you called the police? Something in her tone felt rehearsed. Elena, why are you so desperate to rush this sale? I'm trying to jumpstart your career. By pressuring me to abandon my artistic vision? Elena's mask slipped for just a moment. Art doesn't pay bills, Brooke. Commercial success does. And if I refuse? Then you'll find out how competitive this industry really is. The threat was subtle but clear. I left the gallery with my hands shaking. That afternoon, I drove to Grace's property with a plan. If Marcus was behind the sabotage, I needed proof. I parked down the road and walked through the woods bordering Grace's land. From the tree line, I could see the barn and paddocks clearly. Perfect surveillance spot. After an hour of watching nothing happen, I was ready to give up. Then Marcus's truck pulled up. But instead of going to the barn, he headed for the feed storage shed. I crept closer, staying hidden behind the fence line. Through the shed window, I watched Marcus pour something from a small bottle into one of the grain buckets. My blood ran cold. The son of a bitch was poisoning the horses. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Marcus worked quickly, contaminating several buckets before replacing them on the shelf. When he finished, he looked around nervously, then headed for his truck. I waited until he was gone before running to Grace's house. Call the vet, I said, bursting through her front door. And the police. What? Why? I showed her the video on my phone. Grace went white. Marcus did this? He's been poisoning my horses? Looks that way. Grace sank onto her couch, devastation written across her face. 5 years. 5 years I trusted him. Grace, I'm so sorry. He's been my partner since I started this place. I thought he cared about the horses as much as I do. I sat beside her, pulling her into my arms. Hey, we caught him. It's over. Is it? What about your darkroom? Your gallery problems? That's when it hit me. 2 different people, 2 different attacks. Elena, I said suddenly. Grace looked up. What about her? She threatened me today. Said I'd find out how competitive the industry is if I don't play by her rules. You think she's behind your problems? I think we each have someone trying to control us. Marcus wants you dependent on him. Elena wants me desperate enough to take any deal she offers. Grace was quiet for a long moment. So they're trying to isolate us. From each other and from our independence. The police arrived an hour later. The contaminated feed tested positive for a mild sedative, enough to make the horses sick but not kill them. Marcus was arrested for animal endangerment and property damage. As they led him away in handcuffs, he looked directly at Grace. This is all her fault, he spat, nodding toward me. You had your priorities straight before she showed up. Grace stepped forward, anger blazing in her green eyes. My priorities were never you, Marcus. They were always the horses, and now I know you never cared about them at all. After the police left, Grace and I sat on her porch swing, emotionally exhausted. What about Elena? She asked. I'm going to confront her tomorrow, with proof this time. What kind of proof? I pulled out my phone and showed her a recording app. Every conversation we've had for the past week, including today's threat. Grace smiled for the first time in days. You sneaky thing. Learned from the best. I gestured toward the barn. How did you know to suspect Marcus? Honestly, I didn't want to believe it. But you made me realize that love means trusting your instincts, even when they hurt. I leaned over and kissed her softly. We make a good team. The best. As we sat in the gathering darkness, I felt something shift between us. We'd survived our first real crisis together, and it had made us stronger. Grace? Yeah? I love you. She turned to look at me, eyes bright in the porch light. I love you too. I walked into Elena's gallery the next morning with my phone recording in my pocket and fire in my chest. The pristine white space felt like a trap now. Brooke, darling, Elena glided over in her designer heels. I trust you've reconsidered my offer? Actually, I have some questions about the break-in at my darkroom. Her smile flickered. I told you, that's unfortunate but not my concern. Funny thing about security cameras, I said, pulling out my phone. The building across from my apartment has them. Elena's face went pale. The footage was grainy but clear enough to show her leaving the building around the time of the break-in. That proves nothing. Maybe not. But this might. I played yesterday's recording of her threat. Elena's composure cracked completely. You little bitch, do you know how many photographers would kill for this opportunity? Then give it to one of them. You'll never work in this city again. I have connections everywhere. So do I now. I thought of Grace, of the love we'd found despite everything. I don't need you, Elena. I never did. You're making a huge mistake. The only mistake I made was trusting you. I walked out of the gallery feeling lighter than I had in months. An hour later, I was at Grace's place helping her deal with the aftermath of Marcus's arrest. The police had finished processing the evidence, but the emotional damage ran deeper. 23 clients have called, Grace said, hanging up the phone. Word's getting out about the contaminated feed. What are they saying? Most are supportive. Horrified that Marcus would do this. But 3 canceled their contracts anyway. I watched her struggle with the betrayal. 5 years of partnership, destroyed in one moment of truth. I keep thinking about all the signs I missed, she said. The way he questioned every decision. How he got angry whenever I mentioned dating someone new. He was manipulating you. For how long? Was any of it real? I sat beside her on the couch. The business you built is real. The horses you saved are real. Your talent is real. Grace leaned against me, exhaustion weighing her down. I have to buy out his half of the partnership. The bank wants their money whether he's in jail or not. How much? 60,000. Money I don't have. The number hit like a punch to the gut. Grace's entire world hung in the balance. What if we figured out another way? Like what? What if you didn't need a traditional partner? Grace looked at me questioningly. What if you had someone who understood business and believed in what you're doing? Brooke, what are you saying? I took a deep breath. I'm saying maybe it's time I stopped letting other people control my career. Elena threatened to blacklist me, but there are other galleries, other ways to sell art. You'd give up the gallery deal? For something better. For us. Grace sat up straighter. What are you proposing? A partnership. You handle the horses, I document everything. We market directly to horse enthusiasts. Bypass the traditional gallery system completely. That's crazy. Crazy enough to work. Grace was quiet for a long moment, thinking it through. You'd really walk away from Elena's connections for this? I'd walk away from everything for you. The words hung between us, honest and terrifying. Grace reached over and took my hand. What about the money? 60,000 is still 60,000. I have savings. And we could crowdfund the rest. People love stories about small businesses overcoming adversity. You've really thought this through. I've been thinking about us, about what we could build together. Grace kissed me then, soft and grateful. You know this means we'll be working together every day. I'm counting on it. That afternoon, we drove to the bank together. Grace's loan officer, a stern woman named Mrs. Crawford, wasn't optimistic about restructuring the debt. The partnership dissolution complicates things, she said, reviewing the paperwork. Without Mr. Marcus's income guarantee, you'll need either a CO signer or significant collateral. What if I buy into the partnership? I asked. Mrs. Crawford looked surprised. You'd need to undergo a credit check, provide proof of income and assets. I understand. Grace squeezed my hand under the table. 2 hours later, we walked out of the bank with a preliminary approval. I would become Grace's business partner, assuming equal responsibility for the debt and equal ownership of the property. I can't believe you did that, Grace said as we sat in her truck. Having second thoughts? Hell no. Just amazed that someone would take that kind of risk for me. It's not a risk when I believe in what we're building. That evening, we celebrated with wine on Grace's porch. The horses grazed peacefully in the paddock, unaware that their world had just shifted on its axis. So, what do we call this business venture? Grace asked. Henderson Roberts Equine Photography. Too formal. Wild Hearts Ranch? Grace smiled. I like that. Wild Hearts Ranch. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I felt something settle in my chest. Peace. Purpose. The certainty that I was exactly where I belonged. Grace? Yeah? When this is over, when we're successful and stable, I want to ask you something important. Her eyes met mine in the fading light. What kind of something? The kind that requires a ring. Grace's breath caught. Brooke, I'm not asking now, but someday, when the time is right. Yes. Yes, what? Yes to the question you haven't asked yet. I laughed, pulling her closer. We're really doing this, aren't we? The whole crazy thing. Together? Together. 6 months after Marcus's arrest, Wild Hearts Ranch was thriving beyond our wildest expectations. The crowdfunding campaign had raised $28,000 in 3 weeks. Local news picked up the story of betrayal and recovery, and suddenly everyone wanted to support the woman whose business partner had poisoned her horses. Look at this, Grace said, scrolling through emails on her laptop. 3 new bookings this week, and a request from Virginia Living magazine for a feature story. I looked up from editing photos on my computer. We'd converted Grace's spare bedroom into our shared office, and morning coffee had become our unofficial business meeting time. That's incredible. What about the Kentucky Derby connection? Still waiting to hear back, but if we get that contract... Grace's eyes lit up. The Kentucky Derby people had seen our portfolio online and inquired about documenting their breeding program. It would be the kind of breakthrough that established our reputation nationally. Speaking of breakthroughs, I said, turning my laptop toward her. Look at this. The photo showed Thunder in full gallop across the beach at sunrise, mane flowing like liquid gold. Grace astride him looked like something from a fairy tale, powerful and graceful simultaneously. That's stunning, Grace breathed. It's going to be the centerpiece of our gallery show next month. We'd partnered with a small independent gallery in Norfolk, bypassing Elena's network entirely. The show would feature 20 large-format prints of Grace's horses in various Virginia Beach locations. I still can't believe people will pay hundreds of dollars for pictures of my horses. Our horses, I corrected. And they're not just pictures, they're art. Grace had officially made me part owner of everything 3 months ago. The legal paperwork was complex, but the emotional significance was simple. We were building something together. Come here, Grace said, closing her laptop. I moved to the couch where she was sitting. She pulled me against her, and I settled between her legs, back against her chest. Remember when you said you wanted to ask me something important? She murmured against my ear. My heart skipped. I remember. I've been thinking about that. Good thinking or dangerous thinking. The best kind. Grace's arms tightened around me, the kind that changes everything. I turned in her arms to face her. Grace, I know we said when things were stable, when we were successful, but I don't want to wait anymore. Before I could respond, she was kissing me. Different from our usual kisses, this one carried weight and promise and forever. I love you, she whispered against my lips. I love you too. Then marry me. I pulled back to look at her, heart hammering. Are you proposing to me? I'm proposing to you. Without a ring? Grace grinned and reached into her pocket, producing a simple gold band with a small diamond. With a ring. I stared at it, speechless. It was my grandmother's. She left it to me when I was 16, said to save it for someone special. Grace? Brooke Roberts, will you marry me? Yes. The word came out as a whisper. Yes, absolutely yes. Grace slipped the ring onto my finger, and it fit perfectly. When she kissed me this time, I tasted tears on both our faces. When? I asked. Soon. I don't want to wait anymore. Neither do I. We made love on the office couch, surrounded by pictures of horses and business plans, and dreams made manifest. Grace was tender and urgent, like she was claiming me completely. When I arched beneath her touch, she whispered my name like a prayer. When she moved against me, I felt the future opening up like sunrise. I want you forever, she said, fingers tracing patterns on my skin. You have me forever. Later we lay tangled together, the afternoon sun streaming through the windows. I have an idea for the wedding, I said. Already? The abandoned Cavalier Hotel, where we first made love. Grace lifted her head to look at me. Really? It's our place, where everything changed. It's also condemned and probably illegal. The best things usually are. Grace laughed, the sound rich and free. You want to get married in ruins. I want to get married where we found each other. I love you so damn much. Enough to break a few trespassing laws? For you? I'd break every law on the books. That evening, we celebrated at the same coffee shop where we'd first talked over lattes. The ring felt strange and wonderful on my finger. Elena called today, I said. Grace's expression darkened. What did she want? To congratulate us, apparently. Said she saw the engagement announcement online. That's unexpected. She also said she had misjudged me, that she'd like to represent our work after all. Grace set down her coffee cup hard. Please tell me you told her to go to hell. I told her we were quite happy with our current gallery partnership. Good. We don't need her validation. No, we don't. I looked around the coffee shop, remembering all our conversations here. The uncertainty, the fear, the gradual building of trust and love. Grace? Yeah? I'm proud of what we've built. The business? Everything. The business, us, this life we're creating. Grace reached across the table and took my hand, thumb brushing over the engagement ring. 6 months ago, I thought I was going to lose everything. Instead, you gained everything. We gained everything. As we walked back to Grace's truck, hand in hand, I thought about the blank letters that had started our troubles. Meant to drive us apart, they'd ultimately brought us closer together. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us clear the path for the best things. Brooke? Yeah? I can't wait to marry you. Good thing we're not waiting long. 1 year later, Grace and I stood at the edge of First Landing State Park, watching dawn break over the water. The painted bunting was there again, perched on the same twisted branch where we'd first met. Full circle, Grace whispered, adjusting her camera. She'd become surprisingly good at photography, while I'd learned to ride like I was born to it. Almost. Today was the opening of our joint exhibition at the Chrysler Museum in Norfolk. 18 months of work, 50 photographs documenting the wild horses of the Outer Banks alongside Grace's trained animals. The project that had put Wild Hearts Ranch on the national map. Nervous? I asked. Terrified. Grace lowered her camera and looked at me. You? Same. We were both wearing our wedding rings now, simple gold bands we'd exchanged 3 months ago in the ruins of the Cavalier Hotel. Just us, an officiant, and thunder as witness. The building had been demolished the week after our ceremony, as if it had served its purpose. My phone buzzed. Text from the museum curator. Sold sign on the Thunder series already. Opening doesn't start for 3 hours. I showed Grace the message. Her face lit up with disbelief. Seriously? Seriously. The Thunder series was our masterpiece. 7 large format prints of Grace's Stallion in different locations around Virginia Beach. Wild, powerful, beautiful. Like Grace herself. I keep waiting to wake up, she said. From what? This life, this happiness. It feels too perfect to be real. I understood. After everything we'd been through, success felt almost suspicious. It's real, I said, taking her hand. We made it real. The museum opening was everything we'd dreamed. local news crews, collectors from as far as New York, and a line of people waiting to see our work. Grace held my hand as we walked through the gallery, watching strangers fall in love with our vision. The emotional connection between photographer and subject is extraordinary, one critic was saying to his companion. You can see the intimacy in every frame. Grace squeezed my hand. The intimacy was real in ways the critic couldn't imagine. Elena appeared near the Thunder series, champagne glass in hand. I tensed, but Grace gave my arm a reassuring touch. Brooke, Grace, Elena approached with what looked like genuine warmth. Congratulations. This is incredible work. Thank you, I said carefully. I owe you both an apology. I was so focused on commercial success that I nearly caused you to miss your true artistic calling. Grace spoke up. Sometimes the best thing that can happen is someone showing you who they really are. Elena nodded. Fair enough. For what it's worth, I'm genuinely happy for your success. After she walked away, Grace and I looked at each other. Think she meant it? Grace asked. Does it matter? Not even a little bit. The evening wound down with champagne toasts and business cards exchanged. As the crowd thinned, Grace and I found ourselves alone in front of our final photograph, the two of us on horseback at sunrise, silhouetted against the Virginia Beach sky. That's my favorite, said a voice behind us. We turned to see an elderly woman with silver hair and kind eyes. It captures something most people spend their whole lives looking for, she continued. Which is? Grace asked. Home. Not a place, but a person. The feeling of being exactly where you belong. After she left, Grace and I stood quietly, studying our own image. She's right, Grace said finally. About what? You're my home, Brooke. You always have been. I leaned against her shoulder. Even when we were strangers watching the same bird? Especially then. I just didn't know it yet. As we locked up the museum and walked to our truck, I thought about that first morning. 2 women, 2 cameras, 1 rare bird that had changed everything. Grace? Yeah? Do you think we would have found each other anyway, even without the painted bunting? She considered this as we drove through the empty streets of Norfolk. Maybe. But I'm glad we didn't have to find out. Me too. At home, we checked on the horses one final time. Thunder nickered softly when he saw us, as if approving of the evening's success. The other horses dozed peacefully in their stalls. Hard to believe this all started with Marcus trying to destroy us, Grace said. Best thing he ever did for us, really. How do you figure? He forced us to choose each other over everything else, made us realize what actually mattered. Grace pulled me close in the barn doorway, moonlight streaming across the hay-scattered floor. What matters is this. You, me, the life we've built, the family we've chosen. Speaking of family, Grace's voice held a note I couldn't identify. What? I got a call today, from a rescue organization in Kentucky. My heart sank. Are they trying to place a horse with us? Not exactly. Grace's smile was mysterious. They want to offer me a position, head trainer for their therapeutic riding program. Grace, that's incredible. When do you start? I don't. Not unless you want to move to Kentucky. I stared at her. You'd turn down your dream job for me? This is my dream job, right here, with you, building something that's ours. Are you sure? Positive. Besides, they said if we ever change our minds, the offer stands. Relief flooded through me. I wasn't ready to leave Virginia Beach, wasn't ready to start over somewhere new. I love you, I said. I love you too. As we walked toward the house, I caught sight of movement near the tree line, a flash of blue and orange. Grace. Look. The painted bunting sat on the fence post nearest to the barn, as if checking on us. We stopped walking, afraid to disturb it. Think it's the same one? Grace whispered. Does it matter? Not even a little bit. The bird regarded us for a moment longer, then took flight, disappearing into the Virginia night. Grace and I watched until we couldn't see it anymore. Inside the house, surrounded by framed photographs of our journey together, we made plans for tomorrow. New clients to meet, horses to train, stories to capture through the lens. But mostly, we just held each other, grateful for the wild hearts that had led us home.